All right, good afternoon, everyone. Happy Friday, and welcome to another great Purchasing Division Lunch and Learn. I'm Alexa Francis House, and today we will be talking about best practices for construction procurements. That will be hosted by Purchasing Division staff, and I'll read more about the staff in a few moments. Friendly reminder for this particular session, we will take questions towards the end, so feel free to type any questions you have in the chat. So if my co-presenters today would go ahead and come off camera so everyone can see you. Today we have Christine Shorey, Carolyn Messersmith, and Melissa Cuevas. And Christine Shorey, so that's the lovely lady you see in the floral top there on my left. She's a senior purchasing manager with Broward County Purchasing Division, a proud graduate of Nova Southeastern University with a bachelor's degree in business administration. Christine was inspired to pursue a career in public procurement after working as an area sales manager for Dillard's department store and transitioned to her first government job with Collier County Clerk of Courts. Prior to working at Broward County Purchasing Division, she was a procurement official with the city of Coconut Creek, Palm Beach County, and Collier County, with similar responsibilities to a procurement official with Broward County. Christine Shorey has more than 25 years experience in public procurement and holds certified professional public buyer and certified public procurement officer certifications. So that's Christine. And then Carolyn Messersmith is currently a purchasing manager for Broward County Purchasing Division's professional services / construction section. She started with the county 12 years ago as a purchasing agent 2, and through a series of opportunities was promoted to a purchasing agent 3, purchasing agent senior supervisor, and now purchasing manager for the building section, and most recently transitioned to manager in the professional services and construction section. Her previous experience was in private industry. And last but not least is Melissa Cuevas. Go ahead and wave, Melissa. Melissa is the purchasing agent senior supervisor for Broward County Purchasing Division's professional and construction services section. She's a proud graduate of, and Melissa, I'm not even going to try to pronounce it, of a university in Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic. Sure, tell me what it is.
Yes, okay. It's Pontificia Universidad Católica Madre y Maestra of Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic.
What she said. With a law degree with specialization in administrative law, which turned her profession to work in government procurement. Melissa has been doing procurement with the public sector for over 15 years. Before Broward County, she worked for 9 years as the manager of the Policies, Regulation, and Procedures Department of the Government Procurement Office in the Dominican Republic, developing policies, regulations, and procedures that rule the procurement system of the country. In 2016, Melissa moved to the U.S., and since then, she has been with Broward County Purchasing, doing a number of RFPs, RLIs, RFQs, et cetera, for the purchasing division. Melissa currently holds the CPPB certification. So I'm going to go ahead and toss over to Christine, I believe, will go ahead and begin today's presentation. And again, if you guys have any burning questions about today's presentation, feel free to go ahead and type it in the chat. We will address them towards the end. Christine?
Thank you, Alexa. Welcome, everyone. We hope this is a informative and, more importantly, on a Friday, enjoyable session for you. I'm going to save some bandwidth and go off camera and go through a couple of our slide deck, and then Melissa and Carolyn are going to join in on some slides a little further along. So what we wanted to talk about today was our best practices for construction procurements. And there's multiple methods we're going to go through, whether that be the method of the solicitation or the delivery method of the contract. And then also what is unique or what are the distinctions about construction contracting.
Christine, we're not sharing?
We're not. Oh, I'm sorry. 1 second. Here we go. So as I said, Thank you. We're going to go through solicitation methods. We're going to do contract delivery methods and then some distinctions about construction contracting, whether it's on the solicitation side or on the contract side. So the Florida statute defines construction as, I'm sorry, one second, let me back up. Florida statute defines a construction as building, erection, alteration, modification, and repair and demolition. It includes a grouping of minor construction, rehabilitation, or renovation activities, or a grouping of substantially similar construction, rehabilitation, or renovation activities. So when we get into the methods, meaning the solicitation methods, there are various ones. You're familiar with the solicitation method, probably, of an invitation to bid or an ITB. We also have the ones that are committee-based, where we have an evaluation committee that determines the best ranked company based on some scores, based on evaluation criteria. Those are solicitation methods called request for proposals, request for qualifications, or RLIs, request for letters of interest. So those are all available. And then as far as delivery methods, construction project delivery methods, those are these, and I'm going to go into each one of them individually. Design, bid, and then build, or a design build, two-step qualifications, managing general contractor, or also known as construction manager at risk, and then job order contracting. So going into each of these, let's start with the design, bid, build. So that is a method of contracting that is probably the most common one. As you can see, there are two separate consultants / contractors that are selected, and they're also selected based on two different methods of solicitation. So on the first one, you're looking for a firm, a consultant who's going to prepare the designs. A consultant that prepares designs is covered under the Florida statute for Consultants Competitive Negotiation Act, which is CCNA, which means that that design consultant cannot be decided upon, the best one cannot be decided upon based on price. And so instead of doing an invitation to bid, which would be price determinant, we solicit through a request for proposal. That can be either a continuing service for a design firm or specifically for a particular design that we want them to do. What they do is they create 100% complete specifications and drawings. Those are the technical specifications, construction drawings. And they can also perform some other services related to the administration of the construction, project management, and engineering and inspection. The other contractor that's selected is the one that's going to actually build to that design. So to be able to secure that contractor, we take those designs from the design consultant, they're 100% complete, and we bid those out through either an invitation to bid or what's known as a BCF, a Broward County Form 170, which is a legal solicitation / agreement document that is specific to construction contracts. So it has an awful lot of legal language in it that's going to allow for the contract administrator from the client agency to administer that contract, and also for the vendor to know what the responsibilities are going to be as it relates to the administration of the contract. The construction contract bidder is selected based on the lowest bid that is also responsive and responsible. So they complied with all of the requirements and they have the capacity, integrity to perform the work. And then that contractor, once they're awarded, they go and build the project that former design consultant prepared. That can be a horizontal construction or vertical construction. The next one that we talked about was design build. So that is a method that has to be approved by the director of purchasing. The county sets a minimum performance standard through what's called a design criteria package, and that's developed by the consultant. So on the middle there is the one contractor or consultant that we're getting, also covered by the Consultants Competitive Negotiation Act because they are a design firm, an architect engineering firm. So that whole process, also the contracting side to the design build team is also covered by the CCNA. There are two agreements. The first one is going to be the one that's developed for the design consultant, and then the other one is going to be for the design build team. So it's a full design team and contractor. They team up together. The next one is where we solicit to pre-qualify firms first before we go into a contract or a bid with them. But again, this method has to be approved in advance by the Director of Purchasing. We have two agreements at the end. That design consultant that is covered by the Consultants Competitive Negotiation Act. They prepare 100% complete specifications and drawings. They also can provide those other services that we talked about previously. And then once we have those design specifications and drawings, we bid out to the construction contract. Before we bid out to the construction contractor, we do a pre-solicitation to only qualify firms. So the construction contractors are responding to a request for letters of interest or request for qualifications where they are establishing their evidence of experience, their licensing, insurance, and capacity to be able to take on this type of project. So they're pre-qualified, and only the ones that are pre-qualified then receive those design specifications and drawings and are eligible to then submit bids. The bids would also be only price, and it would only be from those that are pre-qualified, and only the low responsible bidder would win that contract. So our next, we have something called a managing general contractor or a construction manager at risk. Again, has to be approved by the Director of Purchasing. Also, two separate agreements. We have that design firm that's covered by the CCNA who's developing those 100% complete specifications and drawings. They also can be performing that construction administration, project management, inspection services. And then we are selecting a managing general contractor through a RFP, request for proposal. That's a committee based. The selection of who is going to be the company that gets that contract is based on the qualifications. So not price, like the one we just previously talked about. What the MGC does is they bid out all of the components of that construction work. So in other words, instead of the company performing the work, they're managing the entire project. They're bidding it out, but they're not performing any of the work. It is awarded to the low bidder, and that managing general contractor then oversees the entire project. They also collaborate with that design firm that was selected from the beginning with the design to possibly create some alternatives or improvements or efficiencies to the design. So they work together with the design consultant, even though those specifications and drawings were 100% complete, there could be things that get changed as they progress along. And finally, job order contracting. That is where we have, again, two contractors. It's what we would use for very recurring construction type projects. And how it works is you have a company that is a consultant that has prepared technical specifications and a catalog or a price book of all the different construction type things that could be done. They are preparing the prices based on our region. So, for maybe South Florida, how much is it to hang a door, to put in a window, to paint a wall, to put on a roof, and all those various things that you can imagine to construct a building are all in this thing called the price book. So that's the job order contracting consultant. They provide software and training for that use of that job order contracting price book or task catalog. What happens after that price book and the consultant is established is when we have a job, what we want to do is go to a group of vendors or a single vendor that has been awarded for the job order contract. So That would be a construction contractor that is engaged with us as on an open-end basis. So for a period of a couple of years. And how they become the job order contracting contractor for specific, let's say aviation has a jock contractor and facilities management has a jock contractor, because each of those agencies are going to have these jobs that come along over the course of years, and they want to be able to quickly go to their guy, their construction guy on this jock, put a price together and do the job. How the vendor becomes a jock contractor is, if you go back to that price book, all the prices are preset. But what the jock contractor is being selected by is they put a factor into their bid of how much they're going to charge on top of the price book price of everything to become the lowest factor bidder. So the lowest factor point, 0.02, something like that, wins, and they would become, say, the jock contractor for aviation, or a different company that bid another factor that was lower would become the jock contractor for, say, FMD. Those can be either specific to small business enterprise, county business enterprise, open market, and that's how the two separate jock consultant and contractors work together under the whole program. So the agency, when they have a job, they go to the job contractor. He goes to the job site, looks up in the price book all the different elements that would be needed for that job, puts those prices together from the price book, applies his factor, and then that becomes the price for that particular job. And so the client administers that contract. Then Carolyn, if you're available, can you go into the distinctions between the solicitations?
Good afternoon, everyone. So when we're preparing for solicitation, we want to make sure that we have all the appropriate documents and information, such as your scope of work, your specifications, any required tasks and documents, your project description, documents that we would need would be from OESBD, your insurance requirements, and especially your drawings. That's just to name a few. If you have professional qualifications and certification requirements, that would be placed in our solicitation. Any specialized experience of the contractor, all of that information will be placed in our procurement. So the advertisement for construction, a construction project that is projected to cost more than $200,000 shall be publicly advertised for at least 21 days prior to the bid opening and at least 5 days prior to any scheduled pre-bid conference. For construction projects that are projected to cost more than $500,000, the solicitation is publicly advertised in the newspaper at least 30 days prior to the bid opening, and then at least 5 days prior to any scheduled pre-bid conference. For drawings, we want to make sure and verify that all drawings and plan sheets, titles and numbers match those listed in the cover sheet, in the specifications, in your scope of work, and that they're appropriately indexed in the technical specification. Additionally, want to verify any reference to the drawing and the scope, that they do exist and that numbers and titles are accurate. We also want to make sure that if there's any abbreviations used in the drawings, that they're appropriately listed in an abbreviations list. And drawings should have a note stating if there's a specific manufacturer or a model number, that it's for clarification and description only. And that's the reference that we would use if it's specific, if it's a specific manufacturer, then a sole source or a sole brand request would have had to been filled out previous. For contractor licensing, we want to make sure that the licensing requirements match the scope or specifications. For instance, a project for replacement of air handlers, which also includes electric, welding, concrete, is beyond the ability and expertise of an air conditioning and mechanical contractor, as these licensees cannot pull the permits for other trades, as well as typically they don't have the experience to manage the work of other trades or subcontractors. So possibly a general contractor license may be needed. And additionally, besides state licensing, there are also Broward County licensing requirements. For example, like tree trimming or tree removal requires that the company provide this service and is licensed by Broward County, for instance, a Class A or Class B tree trimmer. For FDOT pre-qualification, if specifying FDOT pre-qualifications, such as for like a subcontractor for paving, they must specify that the pre-qualification is for that. If the contractor or subcontractor has any FDOT certifications, they would state when those pre-qualifications are due to the county, such as opening of the solicitation due date and time, or within 3 days of the request by the county, or in some instances, not until the issuance of a notice to proceed. And there is an FDOT pre-qualification verification website that we could go to verify the vendor's licensing and their pre-qualification from FDOT. For allowances, typically the client agency submits an allowance request memorandum prior to solicitation advertisement. This may, the request may include like allowances for permitting and fees, unforeseeable conditions, etc. And the request is approved by the appropriate approval authority within purchasing. Bonding and construction contracts. So all construction contracts 200,000 or more shall require a bid bond in the amount of 5% of the total contract, and a payment and performance bond in the amount of 100% of the total contract value. For a trench safety act, it's section 553.60 of the Florida statutes, which incorporates the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, which is OSHA, excavation safety standards, as Florida's own standards. So the Trench Safety Act applies to any individual project that has trenches in excess of 5 feet deep. And the vendor, by virtue of the solicitation submission, affirms that the vendor is aware of the act and will comply with all applicable trench safety standards. And then the construction apprenticeship program, this is an OESBD program. The apprenticeship program creates opportunities for training and work experience that will assist in ensuring that a trained workforce will be available for future county construction projects. By requiring contractor to use the apprentices for county construction contracts, it's in the intent of the county to increase the number of apprentices used by contractors, providing new employment opportunities for residents. And next slide.
Melissa's going to take this one, right?
Yes. Thank you, Christine and Caroline. Good afternoon, everyone. So after hearing the different construction contracting methods and the construction contracting distinctions during the solicitation, I will now talk about the construction contracting distinctions during the contract administration. So let's start with liquidated damages. Construction contracts often include two distinct milestones, and those are substantial completion and final completion. Upon failure of contractor to obtain substantial or final completion within the deadline stated in the agreement, the contractor shall pay the county a predetermined fixed amount of money for each day after the deadline. These amounts are not penalties, but are liquidated damages to the county for its inability to obtain full beneficial occupancy and or use of the project. So liquidated damages are more like an incentive to the contractors to complete the project on time or ahead of schedule. Another best practice in construction contract is to ensure the application of the prevailing wage rates. The Broward County Code of Ordinance provides that in all non-federally funded construction procurement activity of $250,000 or more, the rate of wages and fringe benefit payments for all laborers, mechanics, and apprentices shall not be less than those payments for similar skills in classifications of work in like industries as determined by the Secretary of Labor and as published in the Federal Register. Prevailing wage rates help to ensure that construction workers are paid fair wages for their work, which also will lead to a higher quality of the construction. Next, we have the work authorization on design contracts. This is our favorite MPNC section to work authorizations. So this is when we already have those design continuing agreement in place and all services to be performed by a consultant on a design continuing agreement must be first authorized in writing by a work authorization. So what is a work authorization? It's a formal written approval or permission granted by the county to the consultant to proceed with a specific design or construction task within the scope of the project. And these authorizations will outline the negotiated scope, the objectives, the budget, and details of the work to be performed. So in accordance with our BCF 170, BCF, the standard agreement, all work authorization estimated to be $50,000 or less shall be approved by the contract administrator. But all work authorizations estimated to be more than $50,000, but not more than our purchasing director awarded delegated authority, shall be approved by either the county purchasing director or the board. And any work authorization estimated to be more than $500,000 or the county purchasing director delegated authority for the agreement shall be approved by the board. So why are work authorizations considered a best practice on design contracts? Because it streamlines project management, minimize risk, improve financial and schedule control, and promote effective communication. They are an essential tool for maintaining project clarity, accountability, and overall project success. And next we have change orders on construction contracts. And next slide, please. Thank you. So all construction contracts must permit the county to require changes in quantities, additions, or deletions of work, or other changes to the original scope of the contract. Those changes must be issued through a construction change order, which are a written agreement that outlines the modification to the original construction contract and must be approved by all relevant parties. Every construction contract has an initial provision for change orders budgeted in an amount not to exceed 5% of the total contract amount, and the contract administrator may approve change orders within the budgeted allocation as long as no individual change order exceeds the $250,000. But in addition to the contract administrator's authority, the director of purchasing may also approve change orders for an individual and cumulative amount of not to exceed of 10% of the original contract amount or $100,000, whichever is less. Change orders that exceed the authority of the contract administrator or the director of purchasing may only be approved by the board. Change orders can be either regular, estimated reconcile, or unilateral. And the most common reasons for construction change orders are for unforeseen conditions. Example, when unexpected conditions are encountered during construction, such as heating and structural issues or environmental challenges. Another reason is to address any regulatory, such as changes in building codes or safety standards, or because of an act of God. For example, when a natural disaster or an unexpected event, such as hurricanes or floods, tornadoes, affect the construction site, and as a result, a change order may be issued to address the impact. Another reason will be for architectural and engineering omissions errors, and there is a need for design changes for a project optimization, or change orders for time-only extension. So construction change order offer a means of adapting to evolving project needs and circumstances. They provide flexibility and customization, but also come with potential downsides, including increased costs and schedule impacts. But properly managed change orders can help maintain project clarity and prevent disputes. So to avoid what, and next slide, please. Okay, so to avoid what you see represented in this picture, where the small boat is the original contract and the big one is all about change orders. While construction change orders are allowed, it is essential to emphasize that the standard practice should be to start with an accurate scope of service and budget. This approach set a strong foundation for the project by establishing clear expectations and financial parameters from the beginning. And thank you, Alexa. And this is a summary of what we consider are the best practices for construction procurements. Any questions?
Thanks, Melissa. Thanks, Carolyn. Want to open it up to any questions anyone has?
I'd like to repeat a question that was posed in the chat. Not sure if everyone saw, but Harmony actually asked, what is the difference between horizontal and vertical construction? If you could elaborate on that, please.
Okay, so vertical is going up. Horizontal is flat. So horizontal would be road work and vertical would be a courthouse.
Right. Are there any other questions? Can you give an example of any recent CMRs? And what does CMR stand for everyone else, please?
Construction manager at risk. Managing general contractor. Yeah, Paul did one recently. He took it up for another agent that resigned. And Paul did one for a bulkhead project at Port Everglades. We just finished negotiating it. And so that is one that is in the award process stage for a big $90 million project at Port Everglades.
Okay, another question I see. Who decides the method? Design, bid, build, CMR, job, two-step, etc. Who makes that determination?
Some of those, the ultimate decision is the director of purchasing's approval, but it's through a collaboration between what the client has expressed to the purchasing division for what they're trying to procure, the type of contract that they're looking for, and then there's a collaboration between purchasing and the client, and possibly even the attorney's office for the client. And then the final decision on some of those rest with the director of purchasing. So it's kind of a partnership and a collaboration on the intended scope and availability of contractors and how it's going to be administered.
Okay. What about master agreements, line item contracts? Are there any special best practices for those?
Yeah, a couple of things. So what an open-end contract is when you're gonna have a recurring need for either a service or a good. So you're gonna need to buy paper over time. You're gonna need potentially temporary personnel services. What the bidders are interested in is the length of that potential contract and the quantity that they're going to have to be able to provide. The larger the quantity, then potentially the county can benefit by economies of scale, but bulk, in other words, bulk purchasing. So estimating how much of either the product or the service you're going to need relevant to the term that the vendor's going to be committed to us for. That's going to get you pricing that's not all over the place based on assumptions. The other thing to consider is the volatility of the particular market or the product. So when you're deciding how long the initial term of the contract's going to be, you want to determine, you want to think about, is the price of this thing or this service potentially going to fluctuate quite a bit over, let's say you're thinking of a 3-year term, then you may not want to go into a 3-year term. You might want to go into just a 1 year with possibly an option to renew or even a price reconsideration at the time before the vendor would renew. And the price reconsideration potentially could look at the index for that particular commodity or that good or that particular service, the labor cost, and possibly reset the prices for that next term. So it's all about estimating how much you're going to need, looking at the commodity and deciding, is it going to be volatile, and considering price escalation or de-escalation clauses and setting the term so that the vendor is encouraged to want to get into the contract with us, gives us pricing that's going to be good for the bulk of what we're estimating, and then potentially either not renewing the contract if we're spending more than we thought we were because we could get better pricing. So we'd go back out again.
Okay, the next question is, how long was the process for the bulkhead project?
How long was the process? Trying to look to see. The board approved the request for proposal to be advertised in June of 2013. And we finished the negotiations this week. And we're going to the board for approval in November. And then the project is going to take 780 days total. So from November through about 2 years out.
Does anyone have any experience with DBOM, design, build, operate, maintain?
Yes, the county, I do believe. That may be what the convention center, Connie, if Connie's on the call, she may be able to answer that. Maybe not. But what that is the company, I know that they did it for the toll road. Is the company was hired, and that wasn't the county, obviously, but a company was acquired to build the road and then manage the express lanes, operate the revenue of it, and maintain the road. Expressway.
Okay. That's all the questions I see in the chat. Does anyone else have any additional questions that they have in terms of best practices for construction procurements? Okay, I'm not seeing anything else, so I want to go ahead and thank you guys for attending today's Lunch and Learn on best practices for construction procurements. We will be sharing the presentation with you as well as a link to this video after today's session. Special thanks to our presenters today. Let's go ahead and give them a round of applause. Christine Shorey, Carolyn Messersmith, and Melissa Cuevas for sharing their knowledge and experience on construction procurements. And stay tuned for any future Lunch and Learns. Thank you, guys. Bye.